So, folks, we are going to talk about the utility of nonviolent organizing, all right? Because I've seen a lot of folks feeling real salty about No King's Day, too, talking about how it was performative. It's just a one-day protest. What can it accomplish? You know, where do we go from here? There are a lot of questions being asked. And I, of course, have some of my own takes, and I'll be sprinkling these throughout. But I figured one of the ways we could go about doing this is by taking a look at Indivisible. Indivisible puts out a weekly What's the Plan show that if you are feeling hopeless or powerless, I do encourage you folks to tune in because they take questions from Indivisible leaders, from members of Indivisible, from people who organize, and they answer those questions and steer
I'm
towards...
an old soul. Thetan original. Came over on the ships from Tajik. Still waiting to get my lick back on Lord Xenu.
God, Paladin, you know the deep lore on the Scientology. Thank you for the $5 dono. But yeah, they direct the will and desire to turn out to nonviolent protest with seriousness and also in a way that I have found particularly useful for myself, and I think you guys might find it useful too. So let's take a look together, shall we? Here we go. Also, these people might genuinely go
everybody.
in the history books.
Oh man, this is our first What's the Plan since
Ezra, Levin, and Leah Greenberg. They are just the sweetest people.
The largest peaceful protest in American history, Leah.
Wow.
I know that's news to everybody. We might say that a few times. Introduce yourself, everybody. We got Mary won the challenge here. Indivisible, Sacramento, California is in the house. Followed by
the first two are both Sacramento.
Yeah, the good Ezra.
It's also Indivisible
Indeed.
Cobb in Marietta, Georgia, blue
Carson
corner of
City,
Georgia 11.
Nevada.
Hey,
Oh my goodness. We're going. Okay, Minneapolis, Rock No Kings. Colorado Springs, Indivisible.
Hell yeah, Minneapolis.
Las
I'm
Vegas,
from there.
Albuquerque, Indivisible.
and y'all, we're trying something new where for the audio purposes, we have this new innovative technique where we put the mic close to Leah and far from me.
Really far from
And we're trying to make that work. So if it still isn't working, let us know. It's adjusting. There's I think Zooms are not set up to have two people in one space.
I think we just projected very different volumes.
That's also it.
And that might be like 70% of the problem. But
at least we've got Utah, we've got Maine, we've got Denver, Colorado, Evanston, Illinois,
Oceanside, California,
Maui, Hawaii,
Reno, Nevada. Let's see, Arlington,
Manhattan in the house, upstate South Carolina,
Portland.
Oh, 5051 Arvada in the house. Hey, 5051, we love y'all.
Eugene, Oregon. Let's see,
5051, let's go.
Oceanside again, New Mexico, Bend, Oregon, Sarasota, Florida, Mill Valley, California, Medford.
Have it scroll.
It's going too fast now.
Y'all, there are more people that registered for this one than literally ever before. I think
they are genuinely the sweetest people, and it's kind of startling because they're both incredibly sweet, but that shouldn't be mistaken for weakness or for I don't even know how to say it, a lack of savviness. They're very intentional about their organizing apparatus, and I for one really appreciate it. They've been working on organizing since the early push for Medicare for All, and they've been continuing to push for years, and so they have the organizing know-how to be able to coordinate with all these other organizations and like incorporate nonviolent tactics into the effort to organize, which is really great.
They don't have a mixer and dual mics or even a 2-receiver lavalier? This is like a $300 or less solution. If I catch the next stream, I just find it.
Genuinely, they're just like two people with like a webcam. It's truly like impressive what they have been able to pull off with what they have.
More than 15,000 people for this weekly call. We love it. We love to see it. This is a growing movement. I was telling the team, it's almost as if
our local Indivisible doesn't accept volunteers, so I joined DSA instead. Excellent alternative.
was a massive historic recruitment drive that just went on this past weekend. And a lot of people are asking, all right, what do I do now? What is the plan? Welcome to What is the Plan? This is What's the Plan.
I'm Leah.
Hey, and I'm Ezra. We are the married co-executive directors of Indivisible.
Oh, she does kind of look like Louise
Mosley here, and they're probably wondering, why don't you get your own damn room? You can probably do that. We are in the same room together. This is part of our little tradition to talk to the movement about how
each Indivisible branch is a bit different, Sassy Sassa. So I imagine some don't accept volunteers, and some do.
How we fight back against the authoritarian overreach that seems a lot more puny, even as it does a lot of damage. It just seems weaker this week.
I think these two are a power couple, yet they are a couple, and they understand how power works, which I appreciate. It actually bothers me when audio is bad, when it's never been easier and cheaper. I hope my audio is good. I've been putting in a lot of effort to get like the right rugs and like get stuff to make the audio better
than it seemed last week, Leah. Am I wrong about that?
That's right.
It seems like they want to do so much. And yes, they're causing chaos. They're overreaching. They're destroying the East Wing of the White House. And yet, that's not where the power is. I think on Saturday, we made so clear that they are lashing out in ways that an anxious, insecure ruler lashes out while we build up this power. We are here with y'all because we believe that the only way to fight back against authoritarianism is through organizing. Leah and I are not the leaders of this movement. The leaders of this movement put on the incredible show that we saw on Saturday in 2,700 communities around the world. This is built by people from the ground up. This is how it works. We believe in organizing peaceful demonstrations of our First Amendment rights because we believe there are more of us than there are of them. And if you believe that, if you believe there are more pro-democracy Americans than fascist Americans, then that inexorably drives you to the conclusion that our challenge is just an organizing challenge. That doesn't mean it's easy.
That's the thing. The only thing preventing us from the better world, whether it is Medicare for all or ending fascism, is building the political will to end it.
I would have P.O. boxed it long ago.
Fair sake. Thanks for the 2 tier 1 subs. But like, this is what I mean, right? Like, the only thing at all times that keeps us from having the better world that we wish we had is building up the popular political support and the political will to make it happen. That's it.
But it does mean it's just a practical thing, and we've got to figure out what's the plan for doing that. And that's why we hold these calls, not just to get on the same page as to what reality is and what news we're consuming and what the issues of the day are, but to talk about what do we do that can actually move the ball forward for democracy. Leah, do you want to talk about how we structure these calls and what folks can expect if they're brand new?
Sure. So this is going to be mostly Q&A. We'll do some upfront opening comments, but most of this is going to be taking your questions out of the chat box. If you have a question you want to do, put it in that Q&A toolbar on the bottom of your screen. You can upvote the questions that you most want to see answered. We are going to take them mostly from the top with a little bit of curating to try to get some variety in the questions. If you are from an Indivisible group, please be sure to indicate what Indivisible group you are with in your question, because we love to make sure that we are answering questions directly from movement practitioners. This is going to be recorded. It will be sent out to everyone who registered, and it will be posted on our YouTube page. We will post links in the chat as we go along, calls to action, articles, etc. Those will all be included in the follow-up email too. So if you miss it, don't worry, we will send it out on the other end. Finally, just a note about respect and the space that we're in. This is a big, bold movement. We've got a lot of people doing a lot. We've also got a lot of people who are really scared and under real personal threat. It is natural to be processing this in your own way. What we ask for our collective movement spaces is that we keep the chat constructive and supportive. We're going to organize together to get through this together. That is the only way we can do it.
Speaking of organizing together,
I do want to say,
God bless Ezra, but holy spacious loquacious made with Beyblade ***** Batman. He forehead got damn big.
He's balding. You leave him alone. It's only happening because he's so high in testosterone. That's right. Bald men have more testosterone, and that's why they go bald. But also, I really, he has high level ideas. He's I do like that they take the time every single week to really reiterate for folks to be kind. And like, I wish I could be that person. You know, I aspire to make this a kind place for most of you, but also like I don't have as wide a tent as they're making, right? Like this community, I want to be nice. I want people to be able to treat each other with respect. You know, I want that very, very badly. On the other hand, if someone comes in here and is like kind of a conservative bigot, I am going to be rude to them. And I do feel a little bad about it because I wish I could be as committed to like a radical kindness like these two are. But you know, we all fall short. And you know, this is my failing. This is my burden to bear.
How do we do that? We have a belief in the power of local groups. Y'all, while we are living through an autocratic breakthrough moment, we are also living in a constitutional republic. And this constitutional republic for the last 250 years has divided power geographically. That's how it divides power. So you have a state rep, a state senator, a US rep, a senator. That is how we, in a representative democracy, say, this is how we're going to govern ourselves. And that means it's really important to gather together in the most old-fashioned way possible, geographically in person. And so our unit of activism is the local Indivisible group. There are more than 2,400 of them, I believe now. I should check. There are more every single day, and that's why it's hard for me to keep track. We keep on thinking, okay, this is probably the last week we see a lot of new Indivisible groups. It is actually the case that we still see 3 or 4 or 5 Indivisible groups every single day. We had about 40 since the last week. I cannot call out all 40. Leah, I'm just going to call out a handful of new Indivisible groups because I think it's important for us to welcome people into this movement. You don't need to be a professional organizer or politico to be part of this. The movement is led by people who looked around and said, okay, this is it. This is the moment I'm going to get in. And that's in red states, blue states, purple states, rural areas, suburban areas, urban areas. We need you, and we're excited to have you here. So in the chat, can you please welcome these folks? Welcome them with your emojis and your congratulations and your welcomes. I want to welcome in Jennifer from Northwest Alabama Indivisible in Haleyville, Alabama. We got Indivisible Indio from Terrelin in Indio, California. We've got Manistee Indivisible. That's Alana from Manistee, Minnesota. We've got
Michigan.
Oh, sorry, Manistee, Michigan. Sorry, I was reading the next one in Minnesota, which is Indivisible I Falls. Indivisible I Falls in International Falls,
I Falls.
Minnesota.
Let's go,
That's Susan. We've got No Kings, Springfield, Indivisible. I'm seeing more and more, Leah, of the No Kings and Indivisible. Love it. It's your group.
Also, I just want to say, shout out to oh, what is their name? I think it's Parker Rose Permaculture. I'm relatively new to their content. Let me take a quick gander here. Is that it? Yeah, Park Rose Permaculture. Not Parker Rose. Park Rose Permaculture. I've been very much enjoying their content. Yeah, I looked at my analytics on YouTube and I saw that a bunch of you guys also watch Park Rose Permaculture, and some of you had mentioned her to me before. And like I checked out some of her content and like I'm extremely impressed. I like her content a lot, and I would very much recommend you all check her out if you guys haven't yet. But she posts a lot about nonviolent protest and organizing and ways you can get involved in your local area. And if you guys are ever feeling like you're a bit at a loss what to do in your local area, you know, I don't focus so much on local organizing. I try and like point you guys in the direction of that. She is very big on local organizing, and I would very much recommend you guys check her out if you haven't. I think she does a really good job.
Name it what you want to name it. Name it something that resonates in your community. That No King Spring.
Like we're talking about nonviolent protest, and that made me think her because she's committed to nonviolent protest. So that was my thought process here.
Indivisible. That was registered by Travis in Springfield, Pennsylvania. I got to call out Elizabeth in Nacogdoches. This Nacogdoches, which is both a fun name to say, it's in Texas, not actually.
They're so goddamn charming, and I just realized they've only been listing names of places for like the last minute. So let's jump ahead a little bit.
Say some numbers. 7 million people showed up over this weekend in more than 2,700 official events, and we are hearing more and more information about events that weren't even on the map, where even more people gathered. This was the largest peaceful same-day peaceful protest in American history. We're just going to keep saying that because they are already trying to erase. What do you
keep saying?
Largest peaceful protest in American history.
It's the largest peaceful protest in American history?
Yeah, and the 7 million figure has been revised up, I believe, including some non-official protests. It might have been as high as 8.5 million.
Wow.
In American history, yes. You can sing it to like the teenage.
The ADHD thought process is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Ninja Turtles song, like single largest peaceful protest. You can do that if you want to.
I actually haven't heard that. Did you just make that
I just
up?
made that. It's been stuck in my head for a while, actually,
I love it.
candidly. So I'm okay.
They're so
the numbers
cute.
are amazing and incredible. The video montage of the places around the country that came out are incredible. Sit in that. I just want to note, because this is a space that is full of people who really put their time and effort and selves on the line to make this happen. This is like a space of the.
What is that? 2.5% of the population? Roundabout, Celestial Heart. Yeah, 7 million was like 2 point something. Like 2.25 or something. So it might genuinely be around 2.5.
Organizers and the practitioners. I want to sit in celebration for y'all. Putting these things together is a lot of work. It is hard. It can involve, building coalitions, trying new skills, having tough conversations, navigating and managing risks and challenges in your community. There's a lot that goes into every single one of those 2,700 official and at this point, possibly multiple hundred not official events around the country. And every march has heroes behind them. Every protest has heroes who have made it possible, who raised their hand and said, hey, maybe, we've never had one of these in my town before. Maybe this is the time, and maybe I'm the person who's going to put it on. A lot of you are on the call. When you are organizing one of these things, you tend to get a lot of feedback from people who are like, they've got some constructive feedback for next time or whatever. Everybody's got thoughts. This is the space where we just tell you, oh my gosh, you are heroes. And we are so grateful. We are so grateful to you for your work. I'm going to take another step back and just say, put what happened in the.
That's actually a really good point, Celestial Heart. The United States military only has 1.3 million active duty service members. Like, this is part of the reason why nonviolent protest works so well. Because there's in mass mobilization events, there's literally too many people for them to actually deal with. Like, even if they wanted to deploy military to every major urban city center, they would not be able to stop that type of turnout from manifesting.
Context of the authoritarian overreach, authoritarian encroachment that we are seeing, because I think it's important for everyone to understand that what happened last week or over the weekend was a failed attempt by an authoritarian regime at compelling compliance.
Yes.
We saw Republicans out for a week in advance. We've in the middle of like an ongoing effort to suppress civil society, repress dissent. We saw Republicans wage a full-throated campaign to brand these rallies as hateful, to bunk them as destructive, to try to scare people away from coming, to try and drive down attendance and create a permission structure for repression that would allow them to escalate in the way that they have consistently tried to do. We saw all of that. They wanted these to be small. They wanted them to give them the visuals that would allow them to escalate their repression. We rejected the fear. We rejected their
I believe this was streamed after, right? This came out yesterday.
smears. We turned out in unbelievable, literally historic numbers in peaceful and organized and joyful, and in some cases very silly, strategically silly protests in order to dispute what their entire narrative. And in doing so, we called that fundamental bluff of authoritarianism, right?
Yeah.
The fundamental bluff that their power is inevitable, that they will inevitably win, that everyone in society just has to get smaller, go quiet, let them take control. We called that bluff together. We rejected it. And what is the result? It really scared them. There is a great piece. But I mean, we know that because Donald Trump was up rage posting the most insane scatological video of himself.
Scatological. I do want to say though that like this is one of the reasons why you shouldn't allow yourself to doom. You shouldn't don't do that. Because part of the doomer mindset is intensely related to why institutions and people capitulate to the administration, right? The doomer mindset is essentially the idea that like, well, they have all the power anyway, what's even the point? Trump's gonna break the law anyway, what's even the point of trying to take this to court? And so the idea there, kind of the cycle you go down is like, well, then I won't bring them to court anyway, or it's not worth standing up to them. And that in turn makes it easier for the authoritarian to consolidate power, right? It's one of the reasons why I push back so hard on folks who feel doomer and why I try to radically encourage people to feel hope. Because like going out and actually cultivating that hope is really, really important. That hope is maybe the fundamental bedrock upon which we build our movement. And it shouldn't just be hope, it should be hope combined with the knowledge that this administration, if we are all filled with hope, if we are all taking action predicated on that hope, they can't beat us. They can't actually win in any way that matters. And so it is deeply important to hold on to that hope and to cultivate it and to be intentional about it and to make sure you do not burn yourself out, because that's when the authoritarian doubt begins to seep into your mind. And I call it the authoritarian doubt because the doubt serves the authoritarian.
Confirming one that he'd like to be a king.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Nomadic. Like the fascist would rather you defeat yourself with doubt and indecision and fear, and then they don't have to worry about you.
And demonstrating, and I'm not even going to say this out loud, demonstrating what he would like to do to protesters. That's not somebody who's, doesn't care what happened. That's somebody who is pretty frustrated about the fact that the single largest protest in American history was a protest of him. We're going to pop in the chat a Jamel Bowie piece because I think it's so much more eloquent than I'm going to be able to cover on the call right now, talking about exactly why this.
Yeah, Brooklyn to NW, like, I'm just going to read your comment. If they take the economy and they have us begging for crumbs, they believe they'll beat us that way. And that is an incredibly dangerous gamble for them to take. Historically, it does not work well to try and starve the general population into agreeing with you.
Regime is so scared of large-scale peaceful protest, of the fact that we have successfully created this container for a pro-democracy movement, this story of what is happening, and the fact that we are both organizing and building our own capacity and punching it through to the broader public. And how is it working? We're going to pop another link in chat from CNN, because the thing is, polling that is coming out as people react to No King shows that people agree with us. There is I'm going to say 56% to 41% Americans agree that Donald Trump is behaving like a dangerous dictator right now. That is wild.
Hungry people do not sit idle.
Indeed. And like, even if you somehow restore order after like people have taken action to try and feed themselves, like they're not going to like you. and they're certainly not going to fear you. Oh, no, Brooklyn to NW, that is the gamble that they are taking. It does appear that way. I don't think it's going to work out for them the way they think it might, though.
Protests are not normally very popular at the time that they happen. It's extremely rare that you are able to successfully kind of like land the story of what is happening. It is extremely rare that you are able to like inject that narrative in a way that has that kind of broad uptake immediately. And it is a credit to the discipline, it is a credit to the depth and the breadth of the organizing that has happened. It is a credit to everybody on this call. So thank you. And then finally, we're building capacity, we're building numbers. Guys, in April at Hands Off, we had 3 million people, which was incredible. In June at No Kings, we had 5 million people, which was also incredible. This year, or this time, we had 7 million people. So you do the math. We are growing with each of these mobilizations. We're making inroads into places that have never seen protests before. We are bringing out more and new people each time. We're building skills and capacities all over the country that are going to serve us well as we transition and as we continue to grow. Ezra, you take us into the next story.
Now, before we go on here, I wanted to pause and say, her observation there seems pretty straightforward, right? But let's break that down. We're building skills and capacities all across this country, right? And I think a lot of people who like to dismiss these No Kings protests, they think of it as, oh, a bunch of libs, a bunch of liberals, a bunch of neoliberals and conservatives, a bunch of virtue signalers who are going back to brunch, right? That's what they think. But keep in mind, each and every one of those people who is turning out, they are workers too. They have skills and expertise, and they have knowledge, and they have connections, and they have different abilities. And the entire point of doing these is to connect those folks into an anti-authoritarian movement, not just to one protest, but into a movement, so that they can go and work in different areas of their community and put those skills and connections and knowledge to use. They are workers. They're the people we're supposed to have solidarity with. Like, it's so important. So when she's talking about building up those skills and capacities, that's what she means. When you have 8+ million people, or even 7 million people, like they're saying, right? Like, that is so much accumulated knowledge, so much accumulated expertise, so much ability to enact change and to do things in the community. Because what do workers do best? We get to work.
Building a resistance to fascism now will vaccinate us for a couple generations, making the life of fascism harder.
It's true. And honestly, again, this is why I keep harping on the idea that when we get beyond this, we need better than a New Deal 2. We need a super New Deal 2 that gets us to, a better and more stable future. Socialism is that path forward. It's why I advocate for it. Because if we capitulate and give capitalism too much ground, we will wind up back in this exact situation, 100 years hence. And so I also just want to touch on something else that she mentioned here.
Seeing a lot
serve us well as we transition. We're building skills and capacities, all new people each time that have never seen protests before. With each of these mobilizations, we're making inroads into places that have never seen protests before.
To that one, you might think, oh, what do you mean? And I talked about this a little bit the other day, right? About where folks are making inroads. And one of the things that I wanted to bring up here is, in this piece, resistance reaches into Trump country, right? This was posted before No Kings. And you can see in some of these maps here, proportion of US counties with at least one protest by month. And you can see we are already surpassing where we were at any point during Trump's first administration. And we're less than a year in. Okay? In terms of protest counties where people are turning out to consistently protest this administration. Many of these protests have featured impressive numbers of participants. For instance, on No King's Day on June 14th, a protest in Kingsport, Tennessee, saw an estimated 2,000 people lining almost a mile stretch of Center Street, close to 10% of that city's population. Trump won the surrounding Sullivan County by 54 points. That's for just the previous No King's Day. And so it begs the question, how are these protests penetrating into Trump country, right? And Erica Chenoweth's outfit here did really good work breaking this down, right? Small but mighty protests. We have seen a 62.5% increase in average protest participation nationwide in Trump country, meaning in deep red areas of the country that voted for Donald Trump, there are 62.5% more protesters than there were during Trump's last term. That's where we're at right now. And it's only going to go up from here, folks. The people who are going to be hardest hit by the government shutdown, hardest hit by these cuts that the Republicans are trying to force through so that they can pay their billionaire friends. People who are going to be hurt most by that, in a lot of cases, are folks in Trump country. It is worth noting that a lot of what's happening here is unprecedented. All right? Here's another one. Over 86% of voters in Hardin County, Texas, voted for Trump in 2024. The county seat of Quincy, with a population of 2,125, also saw a protest march in March of 2025 at Big Thicket National Preserve as part of the Resistance Rangers Day of Action. Organizers report that 25 people attended, accounting for 1.2% of the population. In Harlan County, Kentucky, some 88% of the ballots were cast for Trump. But town of Harlan saw one protest in July of 2025 against the Big Beautiful Bill with an estimated 20 to 30 participants, or between 1.1 and 1.6% of the population. Trump similarly won about 88% of the vote in Campbell County, Wyoming. The county seat of Gillette has seen at least two protests so far in 2025. One on April 5th, hands off, with an estimated 75, and one on June 18th, no kings, with an estimated crowd of 175, about 0.5% of the county population, or the city's population. And that doesn't seem like a huge deal, but these are places in the country where people have historically never protested before. You are seeing people and communities turning out to protest and taking their literal first steps as protesters. And it's wonderful. It is a wonderful amount of activation.
They did not account for this level of resistance. They are scared. Have hope, lovely people.
Yeah, and I talked about this the other day. Every single one of these protests, every single person who gets out on the streets, the way this is geographically dispersed across the country, this creates friction for the administration. Every single one of us is a point of friction that they have to contend with. That makes it harder for them to truly embrace the fascist ideas that they wish to put forward and impose upon us. And Shootbang, I think you are exactly right. I think when people like Stephen Miller think about Americans, they think about docile sheep. They think about people who are easily controlled and manipulated. They think we are going to turn over and lay down and die. And we're just not going to do that. I think a lot of folks under Donald Trump assumed that Trump voters are essentially stupid morons who are going to be controllable. And they thought that the level of control was basically infinite, that they could cut trillions of dollars from the American budget and hand it to billionaires, and no one would notice, that none of them would actually take notice and do something. But that's not what we're seeing, actually. And yes, there are some that are, for sure. There are some fools that are going to be ride or die for this guy, even as they suffer on account of him. But not all of them. And we're seeing that. because people who are turning out in these very red areas, they're not just Democrats. They're also Republicans. You know, whether they're Republican, like, whether they are Republican farmers who got screwed over by tariffs, or middlemen who have been fired as a result of, like, you know, fact that they can no longer import cheaply, like, or because they rely on food being distributed to their area that's no longer being distributed there. Like, there are a lot of gaps here, and a lot of damage is being done, and people are starting to look around and go, hey, wait a minute. And I think that is only going to continue as we go forward. Like, Donald Trump is at the least popular level he has ever been in either of his terms, and we are only 9 months in. So it's only going to get worse for him from here.
Bringing out more and new people each time. We're building skills and capacities all over the country that are going to serve us well as we transition and as we can.
Yeah, I live in pretty much the way station between Minneapolis and Des Moines, and we had like 800 people show up at the last No Kings we just had. Samara says, I love hearing that. For those who don't know, the way station between Minneapolis and Des Moines, not that big.
Continue to grow. Ezra, you take us into the next story.
I'm seeing a lot of people saying, so what's next? What's next?
Yeah, no, right.
So we can connect the dots, right? 3 million.
An audience of people who always want to know what's
well,
next.
that's why we're like, I love how practically minded Indivisibles are, which is like, we were like, yeah, we did an incredible thing, a historic thing, but like, okay, now what are we going to do? And that's exactly where our heads go. It's like, we didn't do this to do this. We did this in service of a strategy to help us achieve our goal. 3 million, 5 million, 7 million. What's next? So let's talk about what's next. If people came to the call on Tuesday, you will have heard a little bit of this. It was our largest movement call literally in history. What we know is that mass mobilizations are a tactic. We just pulled off the most impressive one of these tactics in American history, but no successful anti-authoritarian movement around the world has relied exclusively on one-day protests. Successful movements grow, they evolve, they mature, they diversify their tactics, they do new things together, they make demands, specific demands, and extract specific concessions. They fracture the opposition. They buck up the forces of defiance. And I want to talk about how we take a historic level of people power and use it in the near term, not just in the long term. There will be future mobilizations, but not just for the future mobilization. But what do we do with this power now to push back against the authoritarianism? And I think it's really important that we learn from what's worked so far this year. And I think the best case study we have, it's not everything, but the best case study we've had of how people power can immediately push back and achieve immediate results was what we saw a few weeks ago with Disney and ABC and Kimmel. Here's how it went down. The regime bullied this institution, Disney. That institution capitulated, got Kimmel off the air. People rebelled. 1.7 million of us canceled our Disney Plus subscriptions. Even those of us with a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old at home who rely on that canceled our Disney subscriptions. We were out in Burbank protesting Disney in person. We were out in New York protesting ABC in person. This all happened in a matter of days. This wasn't months long. This was immediate, rapid response. And what did that target do? They reversed course. We made a demand that they could actually meet, which was get the guy back on the air, and they did it. And democracy sat up a little bit straighter. We were all a little bit more confident right after that. It didn't save democracy just by itself, but it started to create this sense that, oh, whoa, maybe there are costs to capitulation. Maybe it isn't the quote unquote smart thing to do to just bow to this regime. And so that, yeah, it's important for Disney. I like that Kimmel got back in the air. I like the guy. I appreciate everything he did to promote No Kings, which was significant in the lead up to this weekend. But it's important beyond Disney. It's important for the message it sends to other media institutions, to other businesses, to other institutions. It says there's a cost to capitulation, and we collectively produce that cost. This is how we reverse this culture of fear that the regime is spreading.
So what he's talking about here, and for those of you who have taken Indivisible's like leadership training, which I would recommend, by the way, if you are feeling like you want to build up some skills, there are 3-hour-long training courses you can take. I believe Indivisible has them on their YouTube page. Part of what a nonviolent resistance movement needs to do is erode the pillars of support for the authoritarian regime. And you have several different pillars, one of which being the business support. Like the administration, or rather the regime, relies upon the support of businesses. And one of the ways you can disrupt that is by targeting different businesses, choosing your shot, right? And taking aim at one particular business that is doing the bidding of the administration in order to make a point and make an example.
Make it clear that democracy is indeed reasserting itself, that there's going to be...
You extract a meaningful cost from those companies for kowtowing to fascists.
People who will not put up with this shit, that will not allow you to just go along with the regime. And you don't have to do this to literally every single institution in the country. No, that's not what's actually required of us. We just have to notch a lot of individual high-profile wins, like a Disney, to make clear that this isn't the Trump era. This is the No Kings era, and you better get with the times. We want leaders of these institutions to understand that, look, they could be the target of the next pro-democracy demonstration of power. And so I'm actually going to do something a little bit chancy here right now.
So should people be protesting and cutting money to the East Wing demolition donors, since we know who they are? Shoot bang, I would advocate for that, yeah. Like, however folks can get others to begin to boycott companies that are capitulating like this, I support that. And there are going to be a lot of different ways to organize around that. But sometimes there, like a lot of companies and individuals and nebulous foundations supported it. Sometimes it's good to just pick one specific target in order to make an example of them.
Which is to tell you not this is what we're going to do, but to invite you into the planning of how we apply that power. And we have an idea. But I would say this is in the idea phase where we are gathering input. And if there's sufficient interest, we want to go on it pretty fast. That's where we are in this. And so I'm going to propose another possible target. This isn't everything, but it is something that I think could push us in the direction of creating this sense that democracy is here. And the target here is Spotify. Let me tell you about Spotify. Like Disney, Spotify is a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Like Disney, it relies a lot on subscriptions. 90% of Spotify's revenue almost comes from subscriptions. People paying, normal everyday people paying on a monthly basis. Only about 10% of its revenue comes from ads. And also, for that 10%, news broke last week that Spotify is running ads to recruit for ICE. Right now, they're running these ads, actively participating in building up the secret police force that we have all seen. They're terrorizing communities across the country. And this is just the beginning. ICE is ramping up. The reason why they're getting money to recruit for ICE is because America just approved $171 billion for Donald Trump's secret police force. So they got money to spend on ads. And Spotify is taking some of that money. Spotify does not want to be the target of a national boycott. They don't want to know that they are taking money to help recruit Proud Boys to zip tie kids in Chicago and pull them naked out in the streets. But that's what they're doing. That is what they are doing. But I'm not going to sit here and make a threat that we can't actually say people are behind, that people are actually angry. I don't want to say that and then have there be no response. So I'm bringing this up now before we have some kind of website to launch or big campaign to engage everybody here on the strategic planning. I don't want to act again as if ICE is only operating through Spotify, or that Spotify is like the only or even the main perpetrator. Every one of us could name a lot. Yes, Amazon. Look, Apple has been doing bad things too. There are a lot of bad actors here. What I'm saying is I think Spotify is a particularly good target in this moment. It is a public-facing brand. It purports to be cool. It is doing a specific bad thing, running these ads, that we can actually make a demand about. We could get them to stop it. And we can mobilize millions of people who are subscribers to take action to apply that pressure. So
yeah, like I get what he's saying, right? Like, so in this circumstance, right, you want to pick a target. You want to pick a target that has, that is doing something bad, that is broadly abhorrent. And then you want to focus your, people power on demonstrating how unacceptable that abhorrence is. And by doing that, you help erode support for the business pillar of that is aligned itself with this administration, right? You want to do that. And the thing is, you want to make sure that your boycott has achievable goals that you can then point to so that other companies are like, better not do that. Kind of the goal is similar, right? You want to get companies complying in advance with what the broad-based popular movement and their goals are, rather than the authoritarian regime. You want to make essentially popular support an additional element that they have to consider when they're taking ad deals or anytime they're doing business with the administration. You want to make the popular support a big enough player that every single company that engages with this administration has to do a cost-benefit analysis where they're like, yeah, but people will be mad and might organize against us. I think that's a pretty big point to make. And Spotify, I think, is an achievable target. Because their advertising revenue does not make up the majority of their income, it means that customers have an outsized influence on what Spotify does, right? Suddenly removing yourself from the Spotify ecosystem deals quite a blow to their bottom line, and they do not want that blow. Actually, do we have any list of companies that are acquiescing on the Discord? Brutus Magnuson, we do not. But if somebody wanted to make a Google Doc and start compiling, that would be a wonderful resource to have.
I'm seeing a lot of positivity in the chat, which is encouraging. Here's what I would actually ask of you, though. We are going to follow up this call with a survey. It's only going to have 3 or 4 questions. It's not super in-depth, but we're trying to get a sense of where the movement is on this. And that's going to come out right after this Q&A that we're doing, this discussion. Tell us how you feel about this. Give us a sense of where the movement is, and that's going to give us more confidence to move forward with greater clarity, and then we'll be engaging everybody on this if there's appetite. Leah, anything else on how we're thinking about this current moment?
Let's get to the questions. We're
Okay.
all over.
Thank you all for bearing with us. We are trying to build on the momentum. We don't want to just rest on our laurels. We did something historic. We did something incredible, but we don't build people power to just put it in a jar on the shelf.
Right.
That's not the purpose. And if you don't use people power, it evaporates. It goes away. So we need to be looking for how we use this people power effectively. Spotify isn't the end all be all. No individual campaign is going to be the end all be all. But I think if we build up a set of these campaigns in between the mass mobilizations, what we start to create is this sense that democracy is on the march, y'all, and we're going to win. Okay, so with that said, should we go into the questions?
Yes.
Okay.
What if Discord and Google are some of those companies? Well, also understanding that some people are going to be better positioned to protest, again, non-violently, these different companies. A good example of an effective Google protest was employees at Google continuing time and time again to make a stink about the use of Google products, or maybe it was Microsoft. Was it Microsoft? I think it might have been Microsoft. The use of, it was Microsoft Azure. The use of Microsoft's Azure services for essentially collecting intelligence on Palestinians. The protesters internally at Microsoft were able to leverage enough pressure that Microsoft stopped using its cloud services to power that information gathering, right? So there are going to be different kinds of protests that are effective against different kinds of companies. Spotify is in a position uniquely vulnerable in a way that Google perhaps is not. Does that make sense? We would have to start thinking outside the box to affect Google, but worth beginning the thought process for sure. I don't have one readily available, but if folks can think of one.
Go into questions. We have the very top question is from Susan. I have two questions. Oh, look, Susan. People are itching to know the date for the next No Kings. When will you announce one? And two, what if on Black Friday, November 28th, the biggest retail shopping day of the year, Americans choose to buy nothing, not chewing gum, not an iPad, not coat hangers, not a kayak, nothing. Is it time for a shutdown of this kind yet? I love the question, Susan. In fact, we've been talking about exactly this. Leah.
Yeah, okay. So first we know people are itching to know.
I mean, perhaps one of the best ways to affect Google would be to on local, just thinking about it here, getting local or state governments to stop using Google products and to instead switch to a different company. Part of the problem is like Apple is also highly implicated, like, but you could perhaps move your local and state level companies. Sorry, your local and state level governments. I've been going for almost 6 hours. Local and state level government to stop contracting with Google for various services. That might get their attention in a way that is more substantial than, say, individuals or even 1,000 individuals or 10,000 individuals stop using Google Chrome. You heard about people's sick day situation? I think I know what you're talking about, but you might elaborate and clarify for me.
Know the date of the next No Kings. We had a whole situation where we made a reference to the fact that there will be one at some point in the future.
Did Microsoft need internal pressure for it to work? Yes.
And there were headlines everywhere. It was like, there's the third No Kings is coming, you know. So we know there's a lot of energy. That's it's gonna take a little bit of time. Everybody just candidly who was involved in the like core process of putting No Kings on is currently taking a couple of days off.
Some of them are sick.
Some of them are sick. Yes. A lot. Everybody is we need a recharge period, y'all. And also we're going to want to work with a big bunch of people because every time we do this, we want to pull in more organizations, more people. Like part of the goal here is not just that it's the same people doing this in June as in October, as in January. Yeah. We want to use each of these to build and build and build. And so short version is we know you're hungry. We want to get that to you. It's going to take a little bit of time because we want to pull in we want to have a bunch of conversations and a bunch of planning.
There's a movement to get people to call out sick and not buy anything from November 25th to December 2nd. Anywhere I can find out more about that?
That goes into how we ensure that when we announce it, it's set up to be even bigger. Okay. Number two, Black Friday. Yes. Okay. Black Friday. I'm seeing it come up in the chat a lot. Yes. We are 100% aligned that there needs to be some kind of Black Friday action. Yep. There are a bunch of different conversations in different places happening right now about which Black Friday action. Attention that I want to pull out that's kind of pulled in the question is how much of this is about not buying anything versus how much of this is about specific bad actors experiencing Black Friday as really disappointing for their sales, right? So like how much of it is about don't buy from Target, don't buy from Amazon versus don't buy anything, buy from small businesses instead, right? Yeah. So there's actually like a little bit of a kind of how much of it is a digital action? Are there other things we could pair on top of it? Like that kind of conversation, but very much hear the energy and am very aligned that this is an important narrative intervention point as we move to this higher focus on corporate enablers.
Yeah,
I deeply appreciate this stream and you have inspired me to be involved.
Hell yeah!
Also, your humor always refills my hope cup. Also, whoever gifted me, thank you.
Foxy Cheshire, thank you for being a member. Very much appreciated. And also, I'm glad this is filling you with hope and the determination to act. You know, both things are so important. You know, I know that like, I know it's stupid, but like a lot of folks have played Undertale. You know, we're all just doing our non-violent route through Undertale. Okay, we got to be filled with determination.
Just realizing, I think the seasons have changed, and when we started doing No Kings here,
also I still have to play I still have to play the sequel.
It was before the sun would always like shine down on you like a halo. You were angelic.
What's the dono goal count at? It's at 314.
Like as
It
you
also
talk
kind
about
of washed
boycotts.
Yeah.
Okay, we might invest in some blinds for the next No Kings. But great questions and right in line with what we're thinking. I think in addition to doing these kind of rapid response push on Spotify or different institutions that are buckling, I think these kind of longer term campaigns are going to be necessary, and
I would love you know what? Maybe our next tier of donos will be for a Deltarune stream. I know that a not insignificant number of you want me to play that game.
Head is in the same place. PF asks, why don't we take this targeted action to defund ICE centers? On the Big Tent call yesterday, Kerry Kennedy mentioned this action.
Is Firefox better than Google Chrome? It can be. Firefox, Brave, Opera GX, those ones I believe like are generally considered a bit better than Chrome.
We can take retirement companies are investing in Geo Group and Core Civic Co. Apparently, these are companies are invested in private prisons, ICE detention centers. If people ask that their retirement savings were not invested in these companies, could move the needle. And there's a link.
Oh, that's a great idea. And again, why you want people of all different kinds of ages involved in your protest movement. Check and see which companies your retirement accounts are invested in. You know, if any of those companies are the ones that donated to demolish the East Wing of the White House, or are engaged in some way with ICE, divest from them. Divest from companies that would serve this fascist administration. Excellent idea to think about. I don't typically think about it because I'm a small streamer. I don't have a retirement account. Security dude here, it's a more complicated question than just which one is better, up-to-date Chromium based but not Chrome, or where I'd recommend generally. Is Firefox Chromium based? I'm unsure. But I do appreciate the technical minded of you letting us know what is actually secure for us to use. No? Okay. Then all right. Man, a lot of you saying no.
Which, just for the benefit of everybody else, I'm going to put in the chat because there's a Newsweek article. So I'm just, if I can do it, send to everybody. Okay. Thank you for the question, PF. Leah, we've talked about this campaign, I believe, before. I think the Pennsylvania Indivisibles, Philly Indivisibles, were exploring a similar campaign and had a resource specifically on this. So this was weeks ago when we were talking about it. Thoughts on targeting ICE facilities broadly? And I would just say, I think ICE as a target is very, very good, both because of the damage it's doing and also because we're at the early stages, unfortunately. Like the money that is flowing down to what is the largest law enforcement agency in the country has only just started flowing down. The reason why we're seeing these ads on Hulu and HBO and Spotify now is because the money is there.
Please avoid Opera GX. Okay, I will. Thank you for the recommendation. What does Chromium mean? It's like the basis of how the web browser operates.
And they're trying to bulk up. So the damage that they've already done is only going to accelerate in the future. But so like Leah, either ICE broadly or specifically the tactic of the detention facilities.
I think this goes in the category of more people should try more things. Like very totally supportive of it. It's probably not where we're ourselves going to focus. And also, I think that there should be a lot of different tests of how can you get at the companies that are profiting off of this mass detention, mass deportation agenda and actually push them to make better decisions. So I'm, supportive without knowing enough about the specific campaign to have like a very educated take on it.
Hello, Konami Kun the Alpha.
One of our favorite people just came in the chat. Elizabeth asks about Stephen Miller, who is threatening to investigate the finances of progressive nonprofits like Indivisible. What is the national level doing to protect, say, a group treasurer who's just signed up for the distributed fundraising program? So for folks who don't know, one of the things Indivisible does is if you are a local Indivisible group and you're looking to raise money for your local events, you can do that with an ActBlue account. And obviously ActBlue has been targeted directly, Indivisible has been targeted directly. And there's a lot of saber rattling and hearsay. Leah, do you want to talk about how we're taking these threats from the regime?
Yeah, so I'll talk on the macro level about this first, which is that we're very clear that this administration is at minimum threatening this regime is at minimum threatening to come after a bunch of different parts of the progressive ecosystem. They have made, specific comments about us, Act Blue, philanthropy, other nonprofits. It's all part of the same repression of civil society agenda. It's also part of like the classic playbook in that they make these threats and they see how far they can advance just on the threats before they even put any of this into motion. And the biggest danger that we face across a bunch of different fronts is not that they're, the fact that they're going to do it is also somewhat dangerous, but the biggest danger that we face is anticipatory obedience, is saying,
bingo,
oh, well, they're going to come for us and they can get away with that, so we better pull back right now. We do not pull back. We do not bow down. We do not concede anything in advance. Our organization and our movement is proudly organizing in the open to protect our First Amendment rights. And we are, we do what we do and we're proud of it. And so the short answer to this is they may try any number of ways to try to repress peaceful protest and dissent and organizing, and we will concede nothing in advance. And I don't comment on specifics of like this legal effort versus that legal effort, but what we'll say is that this is the kind of moment where people who have nothing to be ashamed of have to stand their ground and say, we are organizing in the best tradition of American free speech, and we continue to do it. And if you want to come after us, you have to come after us.
This is why it's so important that when they called us violent Marxists and claimed that,
you do have to embrace in a time of resistance, you have to embrace the ethos of fuck you, make me, you got to embrace that as your default stance and role when interacting with this administration and its thugs. It is pissing them the hell off that they cannot label us as violent protesters.
There was going to be blood in the streets last Saturday. For us to respond with, again, the largest peaceful protest in American history was so important. And I am so impressed by the rigor that went into planning these events, by the discipline that was demonstrated at these events, and the amount of effort around planning for de-escalation and security and safety. The largest protest in American history doesn't go off without a single incident of violence accidentally. That's not just happening. It's a combination of the types of people who are coming, which is you all, the best people in the country are showing up in defense of their First Amendment rights, and two, a lot of planning and work to make sure that there are tens of thousands of safety volunteers out there, to make sure that every single one of the 2,700 events has a safety plan and a safety lead. That's how we're able to pull this off, which means when and / if Stephen Miller comes at us, he is going to be coming out the people who organized the largest peaceful protest in American history. And that's something that they're going to have to deal with. They're going to have to explain, where is this attack coming from? Because we organize in Hands Off, we organize in No Kings 1, and we organize in No Kings 2. We've demonstrated that what we do is mass people-powered protests in peaceful, constructive ways. This regime, they like their protests small and violent. See January 6th. What we do is we organize at scale, as Leah said, in the grand tradition of America's great First Amendment. And we're going to maintain our commitment to that approach. Okay, Leah, Karen asks, recent mutterings have arisen among some progressives to the effect of No Kings 2 was just a parade, useless and performative, and that it accomplished nothing. While I totally understand the frustration of facing the terrible and destructive things being done in this country by the Trump administration, this cynical view really undercuts our work by strangling our hope. What is our best, most effective strategy for gently but firmly countering the cynical and hopeless who share our same goals for the country? I've been trying to articulate the accomplishments of No King 2, but my draft is very rough. I'm unsure how best to deliver the message so that the naysayers actually listen. And she writes a couple of ideas here. One, demonstrating that millions will take step in support. By doing so and coming to no harm, they are encouraged to do more next time. And two, showing people in other countries that there are millions of Americans who do not support our current government. Leah, what do you think of those 2 points and anything else you would say to this current part?
Yeah, Brasmo, 1,000%. more socialists, more people on the left should show up. People should set up booths to recruit for their local orgs. Like this is the opportunity to get a maximum number of people interested and joined up with your org. You know, like show up with like accessible socialist rhetoric and signs and slogans and like get people signed up. And to a large extent, that's what happened. But a lot of folks on the left who care more about virtue signaling just didn't show up like that or didn't see those things going on, you know?
The discourse that is like, just a parade, doesn't matter.
Well, let's just do a quick recap of the strategic logic.
Yes,
things,
great.
Right? Because it's not, I think we're all aligned that having a protest that is delinked from a strategy is just a protest, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's not good. We don't want to do that. We don't protest for the sake of protest. We protest as a tactic, as part of a broader strategy about staving off authoritarian consolidation in America. The basic idea here is that we are in this period where Donald Trump is sprinting to consolidate both his formal powers as the executive, pushing those to the max, doing a bunch of illegal stuff, and crack down on any kind of opposition, pushback, dissent from other power centers in society. And we've seen that with corporations, we've seen that with media, with higher education, with law firms, and with civil society, as well as with opposition politicians and state and local governments. And so in a moment when a would-be fascist is trying to consolidate power, the kind of large-scale peaceful protest and organizing that No Kings represents is really important for holding open civil society space and for contesting the idea that Donald Trump has a mandate for anything that he's doing and that he will inevitably win. It basically introduces a new factor into the minds of all of the stakeholders who are making decisions about how much they go along with this regime and how much they push back. Where before were like, oh, well, Donald Trump's.
Yeah, make civil society, make the broad base of people-powered, worker-powered support something they actually have to consider when doing their cost-benefit analysis of whether or not they should support the fascist regime. Make them have to weigh their options and then increase the weight every single time you organize.
Gonna consolidate power. I have to deal with him for the force.
Like right now, it's like, oh man, 7 million people turned out. Next time, maybe 9 million. Next time, maybe turnout is 9 million people. For some companies, that might be enough. Next time, maybe it's 11 million or 12 million or 10 million. But at a certain point, it's going to become clear to a lot of these decision makers who are not ideologically married to the idea of a fascist administration, but are doing it because it's easy, because it makes them money, you know? They are, like, they're going to capitulate, not to the administration, but to us. That's the goal.
Foreseeable future. I need to just do the things that are necessary to secure my safety, my position, my business, whatever it is. What we do when we come out in 7 million and counting is we create this sense of like, oh, there might be this other force in society that is getting bigger and more organized every day that I also have to factor into my calculations as I make decisions. So we're all aware that Donald Trump is not going to like have a Ghost of Christmas Future style, like emotional reawakening as
a charming Muppet-based come to Jesus moment. Yes, we are all familiar with a Muppet Christmas Carol, the classic Dickens work.
Result of the No Kings protest. He's not going to change his mind. He's a bad dude. He's going to keep being a bad dude. But a lot of other factors and stakeholders in society might start to make different decisions based on how much pushback they see, how much defiance is in the air as they're looking left and right what other people are doing. And that's part of the vibe that No Kings catalyzed. So that's the first piece, is just kind of holding open space for broader social pushback. The second is creating a sense of a shared movement identity amongst a really broad set of people.
To call No Kings just a parade is insulting. I will never forget when we were marching, the sidewalk was full and a man in a high-vis vest was shouting, "Fill the streets, fill the streets."
Hell yeah, Nathan. Let's go!
In the last week, how many people have come up to me to tell me about their No Kings experience, right? Like, it was an experience for them that made them part of something bigger, that gave them a bit more hope. That has unpredictable second order consequences, right? Because in this moment, we need people to do so many things and we can't put them all into one campaign and say, take this action. We need people to go to their PTA meeting and say, what is this school's plan to protect kids from ICE? And if there isn't a plan, say, hey, I'm going to get a bunch of parents together who will show up at the school if ICE comes, and we're all going to be organizing now. We need people to go to their faith, their house of worship, and say to their minister or rabbi, why are you not talking about how these cuts are going to affect people in our communities? Why are you not sharing that with our community?
No!
We need people to say,
Foxy Cheshire, congrats on getting your disability. Hell yeah. I'm glad for you.
I'm not going to follow that order at work. That is illegal. Like, all of those things require people feeling like they are part of a bigger movement. And that is what No Kings catalyzes. And
and again, what being part of a bigger movement does is it creates a permission structure. You know, it creates a permission structure for folks to see themselves. There's something powerful about someone saying, like, and maybe it may look maybe personalizing it would make a good example. Like, being told it's okay to cry can sometimes allow someone who's feeling really, really pushed to the edge, like, it is in fact okay to cry, even though nothing was physically preventing them from crying, right? In a similar way, No Kings can give people permission and say, it is actually okay for you to resist this administration. It is actually okay for you to do something unexpected, or that might be rude, or throw a wrench into things. It is okay to do that because millions of other people want to do that too. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting to see. It's interesting to see that kind of very fundamental human level behavior become so important in these times of mass mobilization.
Third, which everyone on this call is super familiar with, is we build capacity and we put it to work, right? These are not just marches, they are recruitment events. Everybody who is running an Indivisible group is also getting new people out of these marches. They've got people who are activated for the first time. We're getting new groups that form because they put on a No Kings protest and they continue to organize. We're actually creating the cadre of folks across the country who are organizing for the mutual aid, for the immigrant detention support, for the political, the electoral and civic engagement and advocacy stuff that we are going to need to do in the future. I got a little long, but those are the three things that I would say.
I think I agree with all of them. And depending on how much of a nerd the person you're talking to is, they might be convinced by the folks that I'm convinced by, the people like Heather Cox Richardson, who wrote a couple of really great pieces right after the protests and in the lead up to Timothy Snyder as well. I think I'd look to Erica Chenoweth and Maria Stephan, who are experts in authoritarianism, who talk very directly about the strategic value of showing up in moments like this.
And by the way, I would recommend, if any of you are looking for reading from your local library on nonviolent civil resistance, I would recommend this particular book, Why Civil Resistance Works, The Strategic Logic of Nonviolent Conflict. A lot of folks among lefty circles are familiar with it, but they haven't read it, and they demonstrate that they haven't read it regularly. Because the idea behind this is pretty simple, which is that it's a description of how successful these attempts to change society, to overthrow authoritarianism. What is the most successful way to do that? What is the easiest way to go about doing that? And it seems to be that the most successful route to overthrowing authoritarianism, regardless of how violent the regime might be, is nonviolence. Nonviolence itself lends itself to more success, and it's pretty interesting, right? They take a look at all kinds of different oppressive authoritarian governments and the movements that ultimately overthrew them in favor of democracy. That's, I think, really important, because I think a lot of folks equate nonviolence with weakness. I think a lot of folks equate nonviolence with ineffectiveness. I think a lot of folks equate nonviolence with performativity and non-confrontation. Except that nonviolence does not mean you are not confronting the oppressor. Nonviolence, in fact, demands such confrontation. And it's pretty interesting to read the breakdown and the tactics used and employed by a variety of nonviolent resistance movements and how they wound up being successful, or even perhaps more informatively, how they failed. A lot of folks put a lot of stock in Erica Chenoweth's description of this 3.5% rule. And a lot of people misunderstand it as like, they're saying that if you reach 3.5% of the population, you automatically win. And that's not how that works, except that that's not at all what Erica Chenoweth has described in this book or in subsequent books. The 3.5% rule is descriptive. It is that when you mobilize 3.5% of the population, it isn't an automatic win card. It is just an observation that no civil society with an engaged 3.5% of the population within a resistance movement has ever failed to achieve their goal. It is descriptive. It doesn't mean you hit that number and then all of a sudden you win. That just doesn't. That's not how it works. But what it does mean is that is a critical point of mass. It is a good goal for us to aim towards. But it also doesn't mean we just automatically win when we hit that number. When we hit that number, we're going to seek to engage more and more people beyond that. And I think it is worth pointing out that it's a good initial goal, but we're going to have to roll up our sleeves and do the work, even if we hit that goal.
I also think just overall, it's good to have some humble approach to this. Nobody is saying, and Leah, I'm just going to be redundant and say what you said at the beginning.
That's a great question, Splintered Orion. What I don't get about the 3.5% rule is what counts as engaged. I haven't looked into it yet, but it seems like that would be the key sticking point for me. Engaged means that you are a person is committed to an ongoing set of actions, not just a turnout once and done type situation. So what is important from the protests Indivisible has put together is that what you're seeing is a growth of movement. What you're seeing is, the same people are turning out, demonstrating a commitment, but also different kinds of people are turning out and demonstrating growth. And not only that, but then people who attend those protests then are tending towards getting involved in other local efforts to resist authoritarianism. It isn't just, you turned out to a protest and waved a flag and now you're done. It is, you turned out to a protest, waved a flag, or wore a inflatable suit, and then you joined your local homeless shelter or joined your local rapid response against ICE so that you can film what's happening. You turned up to that local protest and now you are suddenly making sure undocumented children at your local school are able to get home safely. Like, that's what it means. Like, you are engaged within the movement that is resistant to the regime. Because the entire idea isn't just, you have one protest. You have one protest where you hit 3.5% of the population. You win! No, you need the movement to reach 3.5%, of 3.5% of people actively engaged in ongoing actions and activities to stymie the authoritarians. How close are we to 3.5%? I mean, it's hard to say, again, where that line is between engaged and not engaged. We know that 7 million people turned out to the last No Kings, right? Are all 7 million people engaged? Perhaps not. But if we manage to make it to 11 or 12 million turning out, when we actually have a turnout that hits that 3.5%, I think I would hazard a guess that we would need to get maybe even 15 million and demonstrate that we can field that number of people consistently because people are willing, engaged, and able to turn up in that way. There is still a lot of building to do, but if we can get like 11 or 12 million people to turn out to multiple protests, then I think we're there. But the goal is to always get bigger, even if you hit that 3.5% threshold. Hope that all made sense.
Nobody is saying that protests are everything, that one-day protests are enough. All we are saying is fits into a broader strategy that helps us achieve our goals. So don't overplay, this is how we win, we did it. And also don't underplay, like when you have a historic number of people peacefully showing up under one banner against the regime, that's a good thing, y'all.
Yeah.
Like that is a good thing, and good things will flow from that. And now the question, and then if somebody says, well, that's not enough, then you say that, I agree. Do you want to help us with this Spotify action that we were all taking? Yeah. Help us organize that. This is how we build on it. Anytime somebody is like, well, I don't like that and you should be doing that, great invitation for leadership. They are volunteering to take part in the next work. That's how I would interpret that.
And I would just add one last point, which is just be kind to people who are in a bad place right now. There are people who've given a lot and seen and lost a lot and are burnt out right now. And so I'm not advising getting into like long arguments about this stuff.
Resisting tyrants isn't like seeing a progress bar. As Mandela said, everything seems impossible until it is done. The goal is to just keep pushing and growing until suddenly the bridge collapses quickly. Yes. The metaphorical bridge. Also, good observation, Gamer G. Always great to bring it back to Mandela.
I'm advising keeping the doors open. Some people will show up later. That's okay.
Great. Next question from Nadine. Is there any way, for instance, litigation to stop Trump from taking $230 million from taxpayers in supposed damages for having been investigated for his crimes against the American people? With Bondi in charge of justice, it seems to be going around all the pillars of society. If his minions just sign off on this one, he can keep honing up claims for the next 3+ years. For folks who haven't seen, Trump is extorting the federal government for...
Yeah, Splintered Orion, it's regularly getting those numbers in protests, but also getting those people engaged in like daily or weekly activities that keep them, furthering the goals of the movement.
Upwards of $230 million to be given directly to him because he thinks he deserves it. I would say we're not lawyers, we're not experts on litigation. I guarantee you there will be litigation about this.
Yep.
Beyond this, it's a political problem, y'all. The question is, how much of a political headache does this become for the regime, and not just the regime, meaning Donald Trump, he doesn't give a shit, but for his supporters, other people in the government and other people in Congress and other Republicans who are holding their tongue. I do think this is why a key part of our messaging from here on out until we regain power needs to be about corruption and accountability. Americans who do not care about politics at all, who aren't getting into the details of a continuing resolution, or maybe aren't paying attention to other legislative items, everybody understands an autocrat who self-enriches. We have a guy who is demanding more than $200 million for himself while he builds a more than $200 million golden ballroom for himself at the same time that he is jacking up your healthcare prices and cutting up food nutrition assistance for everybody else. That's the
This should be the go-to refrain of every single Democrat in Congress. Democrats should not be approving Trump judges. Frankly, folks, keep calling your senators, keep calling your representatives, and asking them, why the fuck are you confirming Trump judges at this time? Cut it out. Use that as leverage. My God.
Reality. A guy that is absolutely collapsing the economy of the country while he self-enriches. We need to be telling this story again and again and again. Put blame.
Freedom Evie, thank you for gifting a sub to Konami Kun the Alpha. Appreciate you. And thank you for supporting the stream.
On the right people, him and the people who support him, but also to make sure that Democrats commit to using their power, should they get it, to go after these corrupt bastards. And they should be talking about that not just a year and a half from now, but now. So it becomes a fait accompli. So we know the second that the Democratic Speaker of the House gets sworn in 2027, the subpoenas start flying within hours, not months, not weeks, not days. I want subpoenas on January 3rd of 2027, and we need to get to the bottom of this. But we start creating that now. Leah, other thoughts on their corruption?
No, you covered it. You got it.
Carol says, California Proposition 50 is our greatest hope to win the 2026 election. What other states are in a position to add representatives to Congress, and what action can every indivisible in every state do to help gain seats and pass Proposition 50? Leah, do you want to fill people in on what Prop 50 is and what the current state of the affairs are?
So Prop 50 is going to be on the ballot in November in California. Shout out to everyone who is working on this right now. And it is a proposition to do mid-decade redistricting in California in response to the mid-district redistricting in response to the gerrymandering that has taken place in Texas and the ongoing campaign by Trump to get Republican states to gerrymander districts, safer districts for Republicans, because he's really clear that as things stand, he is going to lose the House of Representatives. There are a couple of
you can find articles showing who voted shoot bang. I don't have one handy at the moment, but they are out there and readily accessible.
Places where I understand there's
Can we say another word on Prop 50?
Yeah.
If you are interested in participating in a campaign to pass Prop 50, Indivisible is running a statewide neighbor-to-neighbor campaign. So this is the most effective form of get out the vote that we've ever done and tested. We've tested it several cycles. You sign up, you get 10 neighbors who live near you, and you go talk to your neighbors. These are sporadic Democratic voters.
That's actually brilliant. If you have a wide-ranging base like Indivisible, having each person reach out to 10 of their neighbors, these should be people that these are people that you should know already. Ideally, you know who all 10 of your neighbors are. And if you don't, excellent opportunity to meet them.
So they're on your side. You're not trying to convince MAGA folks to be on your side, but they might not vote because it's an off-year election. So I would, if you care a lot about this, and specifically you're in California, sign up, talk to 10 voters. It's going to be easy to do. You'll meet some of your neighbors. I've done it. It's fun. It's not a big lift, and it will help us get this over the finish line, specifically in California. Okay.
Great. Wonderful. And then in terms of other states, so Virginia, there's breaking news today that Virginia is looking at doing a redistricting program. There's a live conversation in Illinois about it. Speaker Jeffries has been, Minority Leader Jeffries has been pushing for Illinois Democrats to redistrict. There are a couple of other places where there's prospects, but it's going to take longer. So New York is an example where that's not going to happen this cycle, but the best time to start is right now.
I will say I'm disappointed in Maryland right now. Yeah. Maryland has the ability to get another seat, get a right-wing Republican out through a redistricting effort if they wanted to do it, and they're not moving yet. So I think the governor and I think the Democratic state legislature could be moving forward with this, and I think they could use a nudge. Why is Maryland doing worse than Virginia right now? Why is that?
That felt really personally targeted.
Well, it wasn't so personally. Leah's
native.
Well, I'm sorry, Leah. I think that your governor and your state legislature should be doing better. And see, we got to be able to speak truth to power and to our spouses, y'all. That's what this is about.
You're from Texas. You want to look at this.
Okay, fair point. But yeah, Maryland's on the list. And in addition to that, I think we should be pushing all of our state reps and state senators and governors in blue states to put this on the agenda. Like you said, Leah, New Jersey and New York, they can't, for complicated reasons, they're not going to be able to act in this cycle, but they could act for 2028. They could start moving.
Did you hear the DOJ is planning to have poll watchers at California and New Jersey? Yeah, my guess is that they are going to attempt to do some kind of voter intimidation with poll watchers, but the easiest way for that to be ineffective is to just not give a fuck and go vote anyway. There's not really that much poll watchers can do if you're just there to vote honestly and forthrightly.
This forward so that we can make these changes. We can't constantly be playing catch up to the Republicans who are always on the offense. We can do this. There are 15 Democratic trifectas, y'all. 15 Democratic trifectas. There's a lot of opportunity to make headway here, and we should make it the expectation that our Democrats start pushing forward on it.
Yep.
But again, neighbor to neighbor, we'll send out a link for folks in California, we'll send out a link if you're interested in joining that, so you can sign up. I think it's actually the best form of voter contact I've ever done. It's just a great way to meet your community too.
Yeah.
Robert.
Yeah, my guess is if the New Jersey and California efforts to redistrict succeed, you'll see a lot of other Dem states start to try them as well.
Asks Robert from CBFD Indivisible in San Diego. Hey, San Diego. It's great that at least 7 out of the 9 universities who were offered the quote-unquote deal from the regime have said hell no. Yay. In addition to alumni outreach and letters to presidents, what else can we do to call out and support these universities? You want to update on what this is, Leah, and how we're thinking about university organizing?
Yeah, so about a month ago, the administration put out a proposed compact to a set of universities that I think it viewed as possible capitulators, often places that have an interim president or that are perceived as weaker for one reason or another and not as much in a position to push back. And basically, the compact, in as many words as possible, basically said that you're going to put yourself under the judgment of the Department of Justice to...
Whoa, Sake Tanuki.
Even better, create a group to watch the poll watchers. Nothing makes poll watching freaks more nervous than people with lab coats and clipboards taking notes.
But Sake, who watches the watchers? That's my question. Also, I watched that episode of Star Trek The Next Generation the other day, and it is still top-tier, excellent television. Thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs.
Supervise your policies across a range of places on an ongoing basis, and in exchange for that, you get preferential access for research grants and funding. And there has been a bunch of really great organizing across many of these campuses and across alumni networks in many of these places and faculty and staff at these universities around pushing to make sure that they are rejected. Or that they have been rejected. As of now, there are
who watches the watchers? Exactly.
Couple outstanding, and I'm sure somebody is going to put them in the chat.
Please bring up UVA.
UVA, yes, UVA is an important asterisk, and we can get.
Also bring tape recorders and do your best David Attenborough impressions.
God, can I just say I love David Attenborough impressions. Like I love them so much, and I really wish people would just do their best David Attenborough impressions rather than doing whatever AI slop is regurgitating his voice. It makes me so mad every time I come across like a YouTube video that uses AI David Attenborough. Like, I understand what you were going for, but just like do your own. Like, it's so much more charming and fun. Also, thank you for the 5 tier 1 subs, Sake Tanuki. Good night, Thistles for Eyes.
Into that. Here's what I would say. The Trump administration really wanted to get some of those folks on the compact, right? It doesn't look good when you try to put this offer out and it just flops. They've now extended it to a much broader, I believe, to all universities. Vanderbilt, yes, thank you.
And
they've
UT
now extended,
Austin. Not to rail on Texas again. Sorry.
So they're now extending the basic terms of the compact more broadly. So if you are an alumni or a student or in any way affiliated with one of the original targeted universities, you should be calling, you should be writing,
Yeah, Story of the Bard, I looked at the polling from Maine, and, I'll continue to look at it, but Jordan Wood has, like, maybe 1% of the vote in that poll. It doesn't look good for him. Like, it's just a very commanding difference. Jordan Wood is here. He didn't even have the strongest 1%. But it's possible there is enough time between now and the primary to turn that around a bit. But it's even Janet Mills, the number 2 contender, even if she doubled the amount of support she had, she'd still be behind Plattner. I mean, we'll see. But some of the folks that I looked at, he's going to be hard to beat. We'll see.
You should be contacting whoever you've got a voice with or a contact with at that university. You should be making sure.
Kaname Kun the Alpha, I did get my weights set up.
They're getting positive reinforcement for the stance they took. If you're an alumni who gives regularly, great moment to highlight that you are giving now because of this and you would not be giving if they had taken it, right? Just try to make sure that people understand that they've taken the path that is going to reward them in the medium term. But also, if you're an alumni of any other school, you should just understand that this is on the table right now. So it's never too early to start raising the alarm wherever you are. Now, we're working on some more organized like platforms and stuff for you to plug into through the Courage collectives on this. They're not live yet, but we are going to be pushing for some more organized alumni action in the immediate future.
Connie asks, are there any organizations that are tracking that disappeared in a more or less reliable way?
I am not sure about that. If anybody is aware of it, please put it in the comments.
Yeah, put it in the chat.
ProPublica. Oh, yes, I did see ProPublica.
Oh, yeah.
ProPublica is tracking, I believe,
for the
U.S.
rain
citizens
check.
who've been detained by ICE, but maybe also other folks disappeared. So
you know what? I'm going to take a screenshot, Connie, of your question, and I'm going to send it to the team so that we can follow up afterwards. I've just done that so that hopefully we can get a good response. Thanks for that question. I love being asked questions that we don't know the immediate answer to. Deborah asks, ICE has been given a huge budget and they are buying military-grade weapons, warheads, long-range stuff, etc. Is this an army in case our army won't back the regime? Is there anything we can do? And why are they buying weapons that are only used in war? That's from Deb in South County Resistance in Wakefield, Rhode Island. I saw this reporting too, Deb. Look, this is troubling stuff. ICE is the largest federal law enforcement agency.
Do it just to be here. When you work out, you can do more things. It's great. Like, genuinely, just forget about, like, I don't know, the idea of, like, losing weight or whatever. Just do it to feel better. It genuinely is such a profound shift when you shift your perspective on working out like that. You do it to feel good.
In the history of the Republic. Those funds, as I mentioned earlier, were appropriated earlier this year, have only just now started to flow down, and we see how they're flowing down. They're going on a massive hiring spree. They're paying Spotify to recruit for them, and they're buying lots of guns and lots of scary kind of guns.
Thanks, Just Kenny.
This is why we're talking a lot about ICE, both because of the damage it's doing now, and also because it's blindingly obvious to anybody that's paying attention. We ain't seen nothing yet. That they are ramping up the attack. They are recruiting more and more people with fewer and fewer qualifications and giving them more and more scary guns. That's not
I feel like absolute shit when working out and after. I still do it anyway.
Okay, fair, Saki Tanuki, but I do the workouts, especially cardio, because then I can, like, climb stairs and not be winded. Like, it's genuinely so nice to be able to do that. Also, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. And I will also add that, like, yeah, folks, one of the reasons I keep telling you guys, work together with your local orgs, whatever they might be, to figure out how you guys are going to react and how you can effectively counteract ICE presence in your neighborhoods. They're going to be everywhere in the near future. We got to be ready, and better to prepare now than to try and prepare after they're already here.
Recipe for democracy. And so, again, this is why any quote unquote normal institution that is some way supporting ICE, that is helping to recruit for them, is especially egregious right now. They think that they can slip under the radar. We need to be making clear to everybody that
Kaname-kun, the Alpha says, I think the guided missiles turned out to be a misread of the budget documentation. Quote, a previous version of this article stated that the guided missile warheads were purchased by ICE this year. Subsequent reporting found that an error in a payment record incorrectly showed the warheads were included in the Trump administration's purchase. The article has been corrected. Well, that's at least somewhat comforting.
ICE is not just, it's not like you're working with a GAO. It's not like you're working with the budget office of the government. It's not like you're working with the Department of even Health and Human Services or something that you could claim is innocuous. This is America's Gestapo. This is America's secret police force that is terrorizing American communities. We should not normalize ICE. And I think it is both the moral thing to run campaigns against that kind of damage it is doing to communities already, but politically, this is going to alienate a lot of people. And as politicians and as institutions look to be on the right side of history so their reputations remain intact, we should be pushing them to take strong stances against it. Because if ICE is just seen as a, maybe quasi-problematic, but generally fine, Republican-aligned institution, as they build up, both in staff and in ammunition and guns, that's going to be way more dangerous for the rest of us.
I agree. I would actually like to just provide one step back and like a framework for thinking about this as well, because I think it's really important that we collectively understand that the road to authoritarianism in America runs through attacks on immigrants, right?
Yes.
When you look at the ways in which they are attempting to consolidate authoritarian power, they're using immigration as the place where they wedge open the use of powers that they will eventually use on all of us, right? So if you are looking at extra legal detentions without charges, if you are looking at free speech violations, detaining people purely for violations of free speech, if you are looking, or for free speech, what they have said, if you are looking at the deployment of the military domestically for, non-military purposes, if you are looking at the expansion of the surveillance state, all of this is being piloted in the context of immigration in order to have that infrastructure for the broader suppression agenda in this country. And so there is not a immigration problem over here and democracy problem over there. These are one and the same problem.
Yes.
And one of the reasons you need to be organizing now so that we can win electorally in 2026 is because it is doubtful that by 2026 they will have consolidated their power, and we have a window to if we actually manage to flip Congress, we can strip ICE of this funding. We can do something about this. And I think that that's really, really important. I think retaking Congress is super, super important for our ability to combat what is coming down the pipeline. Not to mention impeaching Donald Trump, not to mention impeaching anyone else who might come after him all the way down the line until we get to someone who is willing to sign into law something that defunds and destroys this horrible criminal organization. We need to flip Congress. That is kind of the mission of our electoral organizing for 2026.
1000% yes. 1000% yes. Well said. Dave asks, the No Kings protest has struck a nerve and caught the attention of Americans across the nation.
It isn't the only piece that needs to fall into place, but it is one that we need to organize for, which is why I keep telling you guys, get involved with DSA and get involved with your local Dems. We need to fucking win this shit.
The No Kings Alliance considered launching
Do we kick out Schumer and Jeffries? If we can by then, and if not, we organize the people power to get them to vote along with us.
Kings as a political party. Surely there would be many steps involved, but at least getting enough signatures in all 50 states at the next No Kings protest would seem easy to do. Perhaps keep it a big tent People's Party, make sure that candidates agree to a few pro-democracy, anti-corruption platform planks while allowing candidates room to tailor themselves to the district on social or other issues. Here's what I'll say, y'all. Until we reform our democracy, we are a two-party.
Yeah, also, local elections matter a lot, which is why I value how many of you are turning out to phone bank for Omar Fateh here in Minneapolis, right? Your local government can help keep you safe. Your state government can help keep you safe. And ideally, you get both working together. But engaging in effective electoral politics and electoral action is something that can genuinely keep us safe to a degree going forward. And so I need y'all to get involved with your local Dems and your local DSA. Do it. Join the Discord, message GamerG for DSA, message Dragonfly for Dems. Do it. We have the resources to connect you with your local area. Get involved. We need to win this shit because a lot of terrible, terrible things are heading our way right now.
Democracy. That is how it works. So we have no intent of forming a new party to compete with the Democratic Party or the Republican Party. I think the path out of this mess means unifying the opposition, not fracturing the flawed, but
It feels
still
weird that we
existing.
never seem to get candidates who realize they have to get their rainbow dash tramp stamp tattoo they got over a decade ago mid-campaign.
It's coming, Sake Tanuki. The day is coming. You know, eventually we'll have our first brony elected official to Congress.
Opposition party, which is the Democratic Party. That said, I think we should be heading into primary season, which is right around the corner, with an eye towards building a Democratic Party that doesn't sideline the fight back faction. I do not want the Democratic Party that we had in November and December and January. That was a Democratic Party that was driven by a strategic orientation defined by James Carville as roll over and play dead. That is not a party we can afford to have. I'm happy to say the party is currently fighting back. Maybe not on solid ground. Maybe it's a little shaky, but damn it, we're 3 weeks into a shutdown because Democrats are declining to.
I meant covered up.
Why ever would you get a rainbow dash tramp stamp tattoo covered up? Be loud and proud with your love of Rainbow Dash. I mean, after all, at least you don't have a jar lurking in your closet. Dun dun dun!
Cave to Republican demands, and I call that progress, and I think we should build on it. I do think in the future we should be building towards a democracy that doesn't require us to line up purely behind two failed and discredited parties. People don't like the Republican Party. People don't trust the
Please, for the love of God, if you don't know what I referenced, do not look it up.
Democratic Party, and that's an issue for democracy. And as we think bigger and in long term about what to do once Trump is gone and how to make democracy more responsive to people, I think there are things we should be discussing about. How do we build towards a system that gives voters more choice and allows them to get behind parties that don't fracture the opposition to the fascists, which is currently the choice in front of us right now. So I am, you know what I'm kind of interested in, y'all? Leah, I haven't talked to you about this today. I
meant freaking about thinking you had to in order to be taken seriously as a candidate, word limit, and 3 a.m. brain fart.
Oh no, I totally understand what you mean, Sake Tanuki. I'm just late night goofing. I'm late night goofing. But I understand. Also, thank you for the 2 tier 1 subs. Very much appreciated.
Be kind of cool if we made June 14th, the day of the first No King's Day, a national holiday. I could imagine No King's Day on June 14th, along with Flag Day.
It's Flag Day.
Yeah, but they can share it. Wouldn't it be great if once Donald Trump is gone and he's in prison or whatever he's doing after he gets out of office, we commemorate that day of the first historic mass mobilization against his regime. I think there are opportunities here to make sure that even though there's not like a brand new No King's Party, that the ethos and the philosophy and the strategic orientation.
Jack, when will you release a Riverboat Jack figure hides jar behind back?
No, never now. No. You don't need to know what the reference is, Chad. I'm not going to explain it to you, and you don't want to Google it. Just let it be.
Kings essentially takes over the
It was a really gross reference hidden behind innocuous language.
Democratic Party and provides that boost that we need. That's more or less what the Tea Party did to devastating effect for the Republican Party, but we're doing it in service of democracy, not in service of attacking.
I would die laughing if they had to say in a press conference, I did not know it was a My Little Pony reference. I asked the artist to draw a colorful horse.
I went into the tattoo parlor, drunk with my buddies in Croatia, and they opened up the tattoo book, and, you know, I like ponies, and I said, maybe we could get a pony, and you know, we looked at a bunch of them. They were all so colorful and sparkly, and I got the cutest one. I got the cutest one there. And I didn't know until much later that it was actually based on a series of children's ponies and animated television.
Brown and black people and lowering taxes for billionaires. Any other thoughts? Do you endorse that?
We are not launching a call for any new national holidays on this call right now.
Okay, fine.
What I would say in general is I think that long term we really should be looking at like multi-party system reform, and also short term we're really clear that having a third party that's like closer to the party that is currently the vehicle for protecting democracy in this country is mostly just going to pull votes away from the people who have a real chance of getting elected. So that's where we are.
There are, I mean, just to flag.
Tanner, I've totally derailed us. I'm so sorry, chat. But Tanner, dude, man, that was oddly poetic. The internet has many jars. Some get filled, some shatter. It's the silence that is the real measure of a man.
For people, there is legislation out there to create a proportional representation system. It basically looks like expanding the House of Representatives, which would make sense for our size of country, and then allowing the states to run ranked choice voting for multiple parties. So if you're a fascist, vote for the fascist party. There are 10% of you, fine, vote for them. If you're a Green Party person, vote for the Green Party person. And then you would total up the total number of votes, and then you'd have a
My little commie, I am looking forward to the next-gen of politicians who have to explain things like their association with the Steven Universe fandom.
Oh no. One day I will watch all of Steven Universe and understand a bunch of those references. I never got super into it, but I did see like 1 or 2 episodes. Seemed cute.
Parliamentary style government and coalitions would be formed, but people wouldn't be forced to line up behind X party just because that's the lesser of two evils. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that kind of reform is a good idea to consider. And also, we're not getting that done in 2025 or 2026, y'all. Let's be realistic. The goal for us right now is defeating the fascists. And that means lining up and unifying the Democratic Party to turn it into the unified opposition party we need. Angela asks, isn't it time
We must forge the Democrats into a blade that will pierce the heart of fascism?
For a tax revolt along with mass protests against SCOTUS for upholding unlawful presidential actions, not upholding the Constitution, and their defense on the shadow docket?
Well, I'll talk about the tax part of this, and then Ezra, do you want to talk about SCOTUS as a target?
Sure.
So this comes up regularly, and we've heard it in the context of blue states withholding taxes or kind of individuals withholding taxes.
Jack, do you denounce rose quartz hum?
I think it's a very pretty mineral. I don't know. I like its crystalline structures.
I would say in terms of like how we are thinking about tactics and escalation right now is that the US government is very, very comfortable running on a deficit, like a very, very large deficit. And so, when you're talking about kind of tax withholding as a tactic for meaningfully impacting anybody's operations, it's not like the ratio of personal risk to impact on any of the regime and its operations is not high. And so it is not something that we have been investigating or pursuing. I know that there's some folks who are talking about and thinking about that, but that's where we're standing right now.
On SCOTUS, look, we need term limits, we need ethics reform, and we need to expand the court. Like that's the solution for SCOTUS. But we're not getting there until 2029 at the earliest. That's when we could realistically achieve that. So in my mind, influence.
Do I denounce the jar? I absolutely denounce the jar. Oh my god.
Jack, what is your response to the asbestos allegations? The people need to know.
Okay, in the name of full transparency, there is asbestos right above me, right there. I did not get it abated. I did get it boxed in, however. So, there is drywall in a box type formation above my head that boxes in the asbestos lined pipes and keeps me safe from inhaling said asbestos dust. So there we go. I hope that sufficiently addresses the asbestos situation. Are you serious? Yeah.
SCOTUS is more of a political act. Remember, the Supreme Court is a political body. They wear robes, but it's
how much to fix everything? Well, it's boxed in, so like it's fine. And also like the pipes are lined with like an asbestos lining. As long as you don't touch the lining, the asbestos just kind of stays put and does its thing. But just to be extra safe, we boxed it in and it can't get into the room now.
It's basically a MAGA Senate, but very small. And they're creating
Aren't there regulations for that? It's an old house.
policy from the bench. That sucks because we shouldn't have a MAGA Senate, but it does mean that they are responsive to public pressure too.
How did you box the asbestos in? We got a contractor to build a secondary containment thing for it. A lot of the pipes here in Minnesota were lined with asbestos in order to like insulate the pipes during the winter time. And so like it's old asbestos lining. It's gonna it's fine as long as it's not disturbed. It's not like particleizing. But just to be extra safe, they built like a drywall boxed wooden container to keep it all in.
They're looking at where the winds are blowing. So one of the best things that we can do to push the court to stop taking such aggressive positions into
like if I wouldn't punch through there. If I punch through there, that'd be a bad idea, but I'm not going to do that. Nathan, thank you for the $5 dono. What do you think will be the political ramifications of King Sombra invading Ponyville, by the way? Not Brony. Everything I know comes from online content. Maybe someday, though. Well, you know, I think that King Sombra has the potentiality to disrupt enough happening in Ponyville to potentially trigger some kind of electoral reform. And I, for one, am somewhat excited for the chaotic shakeup Sombra has in store for Ponyville.
Defense of the regime is to demonstrate that this period is temporary, that in fact democracy will reassert itself, and what they are doing is feeding the mass mobilization that will ultimately result in term limits and expanding the court because of their behavior. I view this as a direct connection from now until the 2029 when we can make that happen. And look, I think if you're looking at Democratic senators who are unwilling to reform the filibuster in this day and age in 2025, who are unwilling to talk out there about the need for court reform, you need to be looking elsewhere, or they need to be updating their positions, because that's old-fashioned politics. That's not where we are anymore.
I just want to tap on that point, and then we actually have to wrap pretty much on time today. Sorry, we normally love to go a few minutes early, but
we gotta get the kids.
But we gotta get the kids. So the Supreme Court, John Roberts currently has a pretty clear assessment that he can do
I do not know how to get rid of black mold.
A bunch of wildly fucked up, partisan, illegitimate things without meaningful consequences for the Supreme Court. And part of the reason he has that assessment is because we don't even have Democrats collectively aligned on any kind of commitment to court reform.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if you want to get their attention, you need to do things that start to indicate that the ground that they are on is getting shakier and shakier.
Yeah.
And that's going to look like a bunch of Democrats who've historically been institutionalists saying, well, yeah, obviously we got to reform the court. It's been captured by MAGA. That's the kind of thing that's going to get their attention, because it suggests a meaningful shift in the power conditions that they're operating on. They're very aware we don't like them. They're not swayed by that, but they might be swayed as they start to see the ground shift underneath their feet.
And there's an opportunity here. Look, Mark Warner in Virginia is running for re-election for the Senate. Get Mark Warner to come out for expanding the court.
Yep.
Ask him why the hell he's not out for expanding the court.
Right.
I mean, Susan Mills wants to win in Maine. Get her to say, of course I'll reform the filibuster. Of course I'll expand the court. Or support other candidates who are doing that. We want the party to be better, y'all, but we say this again and again. We got to demand better. We got to demand better. It's not enough to complain from the sidelines. We've got to show it with our attention, with our money, with our votes, that we're not going to accept the failed Democratic Party that got us here. But we...
Jazz Dog, I think I paid you previously for a different song. I think I paid you twice. Maybe I'm wrong about that.
Do want to rally around a version of the Democratic Party that'll fight back. And I think the primary season is just such an incredible opportunity for us to make those gains. Leah, I know we got to go. Can we close out with just a combo of these two questions? Because I think they're like interesting, different sides of the coin. One is from Ian, who says, what's it going to take for unions and movement leaders to call for a general strike? So that's one big ask. And the other is...
Yeah, the recent one was for the outro, so that I can finally use it and not feel bad.
For Haru, who asks, basically, can you give us more time to organize mass events, like 6 months, in order to get it going? And appreciate the love as well. I'm curious in the chat how people are feeling. They're like, no, next March, let's do it. Let's do a big...
Do 3 months from now.
national protest next week, or you're like, no, let's wait, let's give us some time, let's put it off. But
once you do it, identify whether you are an organizer of a march or whether you are a participant in a march, because my experience is that there's there's a divergence in kind of when and how ready people are based on what role they've got there. Okay. And we probably should have given a more structured way to ask that question, because it's really hard to read the chat.
I think what I'm seeing in the chat is there's actually a diversity of opinions here, and that's what makes it tricky, quite honestly, to figure out how to move forward with as much efficacy as possible and as much unity as possible. But Leah, how can you maybe shed some light on how we're thinking about this and how we're planning to plan for this going forward?
Well, and like, again, I really just want to stress, we are still in the debrief and recovery
We
and
need
like
to line up with the midterms.
I think it does need to align with the lead up to midterm. I think that's pretty important. I don't think it should be the same day as midterms, but I think it should align with midterms.
Thinking stage of what comes next as far as mass mobilization, like the next mass mobilization, right? And so this is like mini caveats that there's a lot of conversations with movement, with folks who are part of this, with partners, with stakeholders across, the broad pro-democracy movement that will go into the next steps here. I feel your pain on how
I'm really glad
the need for a timeline. We've been getting longer and longer in our timelines. Hands off was about 3 weeks. Folks will remember the mad dash to get that done. No Kings, we had about 6 weeks. I think this time around we were a little bit longer, not quite 2 months, but getting closer. We are aiming to have a good amount of lead time. I think 6 months, I'll just be realistic. I would be nervous about trying to put things on the calendar that far out, because conditions change so rapidly that I think it's just very hard to successfully, you can get a little bit more concrete and you can be a little bit more careful when you're 2 months out about like the sense of when something is going to land and how it's going to work. It's really hard to predict what world we are in 6 months from now. So there may be like some flagship dates or tentpole dates that we try to organize around well in advance, but 6 months is hard, is what I would say. But we do aim to give people as much time as we possibly can. In terms of like the general strike conversation, what I would say, I hear the hunger for like a little bit more of a linear conversation here. And what I would say is it's going to involve like any kind of building to deeper economic flexing of power is going to involve some baby steps, right? Like we are, when we talk about kind of like what is involved in that kind of collective societal mobilization or refusal or non-cooperation, you can't, it is not a matter of going here from there. And it's also not a matter of like signing up to say, I will do it. And then we all do it, right? Like you actually have to have a level of cohesion, of infrastructure, of coordination, of community support, of legal support that actually makes that kind of mass action possible, even if you're just like not showing up to work for a day. Part of the thing that we think is happening right now is that we are collectively creating infrastructure across American society that can be multi-use and flexible and tactically agile. When we do these marches, we are bringing more people in, we are building more skills, we are helping people create coalitions wherever they are. Those things are useful in a variety of different ways. And also, I hear you. I wish there was like, here's the calendar and here's how things are going. We don't have that for you.
And they're not going to have that for us. Like at best, they are going to have suggested courses of action. This is why they put out a video like this every week. And again, I would recommend, if you guys are looking for something to fill you up a little bit with more hope, tune into these broadcasts from Indivisible. These are good. They are talking actual actionable advice and tactics and explaining the logic that undergirds them. Right?
Mr. Momdani, do you denounce clopping? Do you have a jar? Explain this clearly not I photo of you with a rainbow dash tramp stamp.
But like, I would recommend tuning into them, right? They have the vision and they have the understanding of what it takes to actually organize this stuff. And if I were to put a rough guesstimate on when a mass mobilization of resources towards a general strike might be, it would be in May of 2028. It would be May of 2028 when the UAW has already aligned a bunch of other unions to renegotiate contracts. And so, like, that would be where you would want to schedule, you had to use that language, your mass mobilization general strike. That being said, it requires, again, a lot of that infrastructure. And I've been saying this for a while now to people who ask about this, because there is a hunger for it, but not a ton of understanding of what it requires from people.
Hopefully we will get it soon. And I hope people see that the pivot into economic power, whether it's Spotify or Disney or something else, as us moving collectively in this direction, of us getting people used to not just using their power as voters or as politically focused organizers, and towards thinking themselves as economically important in mass and using that power effectively. And I think strikes would fit within that as well, but it is a further escalation of where we are. I also want to say, y'all, we just pulled off the largest peaceful protest in American history. We are days out. I hope everybody is finding a way to celebrate that. I hope they're finding a way to commemorate that, to feel like we weren't just part of history, we were making it together. In the face of these claims from the Republicans and from the regime that we were bloody insurrectionists, or then that we were weirdos, or then that we were old fogies, or then that we didn't ever happen, they can't change reality. The facts don't care about their feelings.
Sylvia, you're right. Thank you.
We did it. We all did that collectively. And it's not the end, but it's a sign of what we've been able to accomplish together, that we're breaking records, that we're making history. And I don't know, y'all. I know there are a lot of tactical questions and strategic questions about what comes next. But damn it, we did something huge together. And that gives me hope. We brought a lot of people out and made them see that there's a better world that's possible, and that it's not so scary, and that they can be part of it, and that there's a place for them in it. So from the bottom of my heart, I'm so proud to be organizing with you all. I'm so thankful for folks who chose courage over fear and spread that courage in every nook and cranny of this country. We're going to win, y'all. We're going to freaking win this. This is the No Kings era. Trump is just living in it.
Hell yeah!
We will see y'all next week. And please take a look at that survey, because we're looking at this Spotify campaign. So please, it's going to come out.
If they wind up going with the Spotify campaign, I'll shill at you guys about it. I'll tell you guys to cancel your Spotifys all day long. I hope going over that helps you understand that there are a range of possibilities, a range of actions that we can take, that peaceful, nonviolent organizing can in fact save us and will in fact save us. And that by dedicating ourselves to nonviolent organizing, we are capable of reaching a critical mass. One of the things they find about violence is that it tends to turn public opinion against protest. Another thing they found about violence is that it tends to, frankly, not succeed in its goals. It tends to, if it does, it doesn't tend to preserve democracy as a concept. And so we have an opportunity here with the largest mass mobilization of all time just behind us in this country. We have an opportunity to save our democracy, to build something better from the ashes of the old world, to stop these authoritarian, vile, abhorrent individuals who are attempting to strong-arm us into oblivion. We have the ability to do it. There are tools being built in our communities the nation over. There are people organizing against this. There are people who are now open to ideas who never could have imagined being open to them, even 6 months ago, even 9 months ago. We're talking people who are just now awakening to the idea that there is a better world that is possible, and we do not have to be confined to suffering and misery. We do not have to put up with armed, masked men coming into our neighborhoods to abduct our neighbors and our friends and our family members. We do not have to put up with this. And we can make something better. So I hope you all will continue to organize with me. I hope you all will be inspired to organize in your communities. And I hope that this gave you some hope. With that, folks, remember, if you got anything out of this, like, comment, and subscribe.
Jack, I feel like Pavlov's dog. You said so, folks, and I thought incoming segment, very strange feeling.
Sorry. I've trained you guys too well.
Riverboat Jack is going to town. All the viewers gather round. Twitch and YouTube is where she streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, gaming, and plenty more. Her sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord.